The world we live in has created a false narrative around mental strength, a narrative that suggests we must constantly push ourselves beyond limits, relentlessly chase success, and shield ourselves from weakness. In this world, the only way to appear strong is to never show any cracks, to keep up the pace no matter how exhausting, to maintain a facade of invincibility. Yet, deep down, many of us feel something different, something unspoken. We sense that this drive for control and perfection is not only exhausting, but it also doesn't feel right. Despite all the efforts to build unshakable mental strength through relentless discipline, we still feel fractured, overwhelmed, and unfulfilled. In a dimly lit room, you sit alone. The weight of the world presses in on you from every angle, and the noise in your mind seems louder than ever. It's a familiar feeling, this mental clutter, the never-ending demands, the crushing need to stay ahead. You feel like you're on the edge, unable to catch your breath. But then something happens. A brief moment of clarity. You begin to realize that all this striving, this constant tension between what you think you should be and who you really are, might be the real problem. You start to question, what if true mental strength doesn't come from pushing harder or denying your vulnerabilities? What if it's the opposite? What if it comes from embracing the parts of yourself that you've tried so desperately to hide? The truth begins to form. True strength doesn't come from endless control. It comes from integration, from accepting both your light and your shadow. This moment of realization is both unsettling and liberating. For most of us, the pursuit of perfection has led us to neglect the very foundation of mental strength, self-awareness, and acceptance. We've been taught that to be mentally strong means to control every aspect of our lives, to avoid weakness at all costs. But in truth, this is an illusion. The real question is, how do we build an unshakable mental strength that is rooted in who we truly are, flaws and all? Let's imagine you're standing on the edge of a cliff, looking out over a vast, chaotic landscape. The wind howls around you, and beneath your feet, the ground is unstable. Everything inside you tells you to retreat, to find a safer place. But then, something shifts within. You stop fighting the wind. You stop trying to control the chaotic elements around you. And in that moment, you realize that the strength you need isn't the strength to fight the world around you. It's the strength to stand in the storm, to face the chaos within you, and to accept it. In this moment of acceptance, there is freedom. It is this paradoxical truth that lies at the heart of true mental strength, not control, but surrender, not avoidance, but acceptance. And it is within the realms of our unconscious mind, where our hidden fears, desires, and unresolved emotions lie, that the key to unlocking this strength is found. The struggle for control, the drive to suppress or avoid these hidden parts of ourselves, only leads to inner turmoil. The chaos within grows louder, the more we try to ignore it. But when we turn towards it, when we dare to face it and integrate it into our lives, we can find peace. This is where true mental strength begins, not in denying our humanity, but in embracing it fully. As we explore this idea further, we will dive into the wisdom of Carl Jung, one of the most profound thinkers in psychology, who believed that true self-awareness and mental strength come from embracing the unconscious, the dark and hidden parts of our psyche, the shadow. Jung argued that only when we confront these aspects of ourselves, when we allow them to come into the light, can we truly become whole. The act of facing our fears, our repressed desires, and our suppressed emotions is not a sign of weakness. It is the first step toward becoming stronger than we ever imagined. This process is not easy. It requires confronting the uncomfortable, the things we would rather ignore. But it is the only way to break free from the exhausting cycle of self-deception and control. In a world that tells us to mask our vulnerabilities and keep pushing forward no matter what, true mental strength comes from the courage to look inward, to acknowledge our imperfections, and to integrate them into the story of who we are. The moment we stop running from our true selves, we stop being at war with ourselves. And that is when the foundation for unshakable mental strength is laid. But before we get to that point, it's important to understand the illusion that has been sold to us, the idea that we must be invincible, that we must rise above all adversity without ever faltering. Society teaches us to hide our weaknesses, to present a polished, perfect version of ourselves to the world. In doing so, we create a persona that is disconnected from our true self, a mask that we wear to gain approval, recognition, and love. But this mask can only hold for so long. The moment we allow ourselves to feel fear, doubt, or pain, the mask cracks. And in that crack, we feel exposed, vulnerable. We begin to fear that if we let people see the real us, we will be rejected, judged, or deemed unworthy. This fear is the very thing that weakens us. It is the fear of being found out, the fear of facing our own imperfections, that keeps us trapped in a cycle of self-avoidance and denial. The irony is that it's this very fear that prevents us from being truly strong. True strength isn't about avoiding vulnerability. It's about embracing it, about standing tall in the face of our flaws and imperfections, and accepting them as part of a larger picture of who we are. The path to unshakable mental strength begins with the courage to face ourselves, to look deep within and confront the fears, the doubts, and the suppressed emotions that have shaped us. This is not a quick fix or a simple process. It's a journey that requires patience, introspection, and the willingness to be uncomfortable. But it is also the only path to true freedom, to a strength that cannot be shaken by external circumstances or internal turmoil. As we move forward in this exploration, we will see that Jungian psychology offers us the tools to embark on this journey of self-discovery. By understanding the unconscious mind, by acknowledging the shadow, and by embracing the full spectrum of our human experience, we can begin to build a mental resilience that is unshakable, not because we are perfect, but because we have accepted and integrated our imperfections. And in that acceptance, we find the strength to face whatever challenges life throws our way. To truly understand what it means to build unshakable mental strength, we must first confront the very idea of the mind itself, the way it functions, the forces that shape it, and the unconscious depths we often overlook. In the pursuit of mental resilience, most people focus on external tactics, developing habits, controlling emotions, building discipline. These are important, yes, but they overlook something far deeper, something that could be the key to lasting strength. And that something is the unconscious mind, a domain that Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and father of analytical psychology, explored with incredible depth. Jung believed that the unconscious mind is not just a repository for repressed memories or forgotten thoughts. It is a living, dynamic force that shapes much of who we are. In fact, he proposed that much of our behavior, our decisions, our desires, and our patterns of thinking are governed by this hidden part of the psyche. Jung introduced the concept of the shadow, a part of the unconscious that contains the parts of ourselves we deny or repress. The shadow is made up of all the thoughts, emotions, and impulses that we find too uncomfortable, too shameful, or too inconvenient to acknowledge. It's the side of ourselves we hide from the world and even from ourselves. This rejection of the shadow is what creates internal conflict. The more we try to suppress these parts of ourselves, the more they exert control over our lives, often in destructive ways. For example, someone who denies their anger may find themselves suddenly erupting in rage over something small, or someone who represses feelings of sadness may experience deep anxiety or numbness. These repressed parts of our psyche are not neutral. They shape our behaviors in ways that we are often unaware of, and in doing so, they prevent us from achieving true mental strength. Instead of being in control of our lives, we are being subtly controlled by the things we have refused to face. Jungian psychology suggests that the path to real mental strength lies not in pushing the shadow away or trying to control it, but in acknowledging it and integrating it into our conscious selves. To integrate the shadow is to accept that we are not perfect, that we carry within us contradictions, flaws, and desires that don't always fit the neat image we wish to present to the world. The act of confronting our shadow requires vulnerability, humility, and the courage to face the parts of ourselves we would rather ignore. But it is only through this process of integration that we can achieve true inner harmony, and only then can we begin to tap into the kind of mental resilience that can withstand the trials of life. Jung's idea of individuation, the process of becoming your true, whole self, offers a roadmap for this journey. Individuation is a lifelong process of integrating all parts of ourselves, both light and dark, into a unified whole. It's about becoming fully aware of who you are, without the filters, without the defenses, and without the masks. In many ways, individuation is the path to mental strength because it involves embracing all aspects of your being, not just the parts that are comfortable or socially acceptable. It means making peace with your shadow, acknowledging your vulnerabilities, and finding strength in those very places that society tells us are weak. This process, however, is not easy. It requires us to face uncomfortable truths about ourselves and about the world. It forces us to confront the lies we've been telling ourselves about who we should be. And it challenges us to let go of the illusion of control, the idea that we can mold ourselves into some perfect, invulnerable version of ourselves. Jung believed that in order to be truly whole, we must confront and integrate our shadow, our unconscious, and all the parts of ourselves that we fear. It's not a matter of eradicating our weaknesses or controlling our impulses. It's about embracing them, understanding their role in our psyche, and using that knowledge to create a more authentic, grounded self. The external world, with all its pressures and expectations, often tells us a very different story. Society values control, discipline, and productivity, and it punishes vulnerability and emotional depth. We're taught to push our emotions down, to suppress our weaknesses, and to present a polished, perfect image to the world. But this drive to control everything, to appear invulnerable, is what creates the very fragility we fear. The more we deny our true selves, the more we distance ourselves from our inner strength. Jung's philosophy offers a radical shift in perspective. True strength doesn't come from controlling everything around us. It comes from understanding and integrating the chaos within us. Mental strength is not about being immune to fear, doubt, or pain. It's about being able to face those feelings, to embrace them, and to learn from them. The person who avoids the shadow will never know their full potential, because they are living in a state of disconnection, disconnected from the truth of who they are, from their emotional depth, and from their inner strength. On the other hand, the person who embraces their shadow, who is willing to sit with their discomfort, to examine their fears, their flaws, and their impulses, can achieve a strength that is unshakable. We see this in the lives of great thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche, who understood that the path to true strength was not about avoiding suffering, but about transcending it. Nietzsche's philosophy of the will to power is often misunderstood as a call for domination and control, but in reality, it's a philosophy about overcoming the limitations we impose on ourselves. Nietzsche believed that to truly live is to embrace the full spectrum of human experience, including pain, suffering, and chaos. This, he argued, is how we become powerful, not by controlling everything, but by mastering ourselves in the face of adversity. The will to power is not about external domination. It's about internal transformation. It's about confronting the parts of ourselves that we would rather avoid, the parts that are often the most uncomfortable, the most messy, and the most chaotic, and using those parts to fuel our growth. When we can face our shadow and our vulnerabilities without fear, when we can accept ourselves fully, we tap into a wellspring of power that no external force can take away. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, took this idea even further. In his book Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl argued that even in the most extreme circumstances of suffering, we have the ability to find meaning, and in that meaning we find strength. Frankl's ideas align with both Jung and Nietzsche in that they stress the importance of facing suffering, not avoiding it. Frankl believed that suffering is not the cause of our weakness. It's how we respond to suffering that defines us. By embracing the meaning in suffering, we can turn it into a source of resilience. In this light, mental strength is not about avoiding the darkness. It's about stepping into it with courage, about understanding that the parts of ourselves we fear the most are often the very parts that can help us grow. True mental strength is about surrendering to the process of self-discovery, about facing our deepest fears and desires without flinching. Only then can we fully integrate our shadow and move forward in life with a strength that is unshakable, because it's rooted in our truest, most authentic selves. As we journey deeper into this understanding, we will see that the process of integrating the shadow and embracing the unconscious is not a one-time event. It's a lifelong process. It requires patience, compassion, and a willingness to keep learning. But through this process, we will come to understand that true mental strength isn't about invulnerability. It's about resilience. It's about standing tall in the face of life storms, knowing that we have the inner resources to weather them, not because we've controlled every aspect of our lives, but because we've learned to trust in our ability to navigate the chaos within. As we step into the heart of this journey toward mental strength, a profound shift begins to emerge. It's not an intellectual shift, but a deeply emotional and experiential one. All the concepts we've explored so far, the shadow, the unconscious, individuation, are tools, ideas, and philosophies, but they are not the end goal. The real breakthrough, the true transformation, lies in the acceptance of a paradox. True mental strength does not come from the relentless pursuit of control, perfection, or invulnerability. It comes from surrendering to life, from embracing the fullness of your experience, and from acknowledging that your greatest source of strength lies not in the absence of weakness, but in the acceptance of it. This paradox is difficult to grasp at first, because it goes against everything we have been taught. We are raised in a world that glorifies the pursuit of power, success, and control. We are told that strong people never show their vulnerabilities, that they push through pain, ignore fear, and never give up. The message is clear. Mental strength means never faltering, never admitting weakness, and always staying in control. But here, in the space between the lies we've been told and the deeper truths we've yet to understand, we begin to see the flicker of something new. True mental strength is not about avoiding vulnerability or pain, but about facing it head-on and finding strength within it. This revelation isn't a sudden, overwhelming moment of clarity. It's a gradual realization, a slow unfolding of a deeper truth that's always been there, just beneath the surface. It's the moment when we realize that we don't have to constantly fight against the difficulties in our lives, that we don't have to keep our walls up in a futile attempt to remain invulnerable. Instead, true strength arises when we allow ourselves to feel deeply, to experience life fully, and to acknowledge both our light and our shadow without shame. It's when we stop trying to control everything and instead learn how to surrender, not in weakness, but in quiet strength. Imagine standing in front of a vast, turbulent ocean. The waves crash violently against the shore, relentless and unpredictable. The instinctual reaction might be to fight the waves, to resist their pull and force. But what if, instead of resisting, we allowed ourselves to be moved by the tide? What if we trusted that even in the chaos, we could find our footing, that we could remain calm and centered in the face of a storm? This is the essence of true mental strength, not fighting against life's challenges, but learning to flow with them, to navigate through them with grace, resilience, and acceptance. In this transformative shift, we begin to understand that mental strength is not a static state of unchanging control. It's a dynamic, evolving process. It's not about standing apart from life's difficulties, but about diving into them, knowing that each challenge, each moment of discomfort, contains the seed of growth. This shift in perspective changes everything. We stop seeing pain and struggle as things to avoid, and instead see them as opportunities for self-discovery, for integration, for becoming more whole. This is where the teachings of Viktor Frankl, who endured the horrors of the Holocaust, provide such powerful insight. Frankl's idea of finding meaning in suffering speaks directly to the heart of this transformation. In his time in the concentration camps, Frankl realized that while we cannot always control our circumstances, we can always choose how we respond to them. He wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Frankl's journey was not about overcoming suffering through sheer willpower. It was about finding meaning in it, about accepting the suffering and using it as a means of personal growth and transformation. Frankl's teachings challenge us to rethink our approach to life's difficulties. When we stop resisting our pain, when we stop fighting the uncontrollable forces around us, we begin to experience a new kind of freedom, freedom not from suffering, but freedom within suffering. We stop seeing ourselves as victims of our circumstances, and instead see ourselves as active participants in our own transformation. This shift is a profound one, and it leads us to a place of peace and strength that we cannot find through force or resistance. But the path to this transformation is not easy, nor is it immediate. It requires deep, continuous work on ourselves, a willingness to face the uncomfortable, the unknown, and the parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore. It requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is often seen as the opposite of strength. Society tells us that vulnerable people are weak, that they are broken, that they need fixing. But in reality, vulnerability is a form of strength. It takes courage to face our fears, our doubts, our uncertainties, and to embrace them without pretending they don't exist. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open ourselves up to the possibility of true emotional resilience. We learn that we are not defined by our pain, our fears, or our flaws. Instead, we learn that these aspects of ourselves are part of a larger whole, a whole that is constantly evolving and growing. Vulnerability becomes the space in which we can heal, adapt, and ultimately build an inner strength that is unshakable, not because we are invulnerable, but because we have learned to embrace our humanity in its fullest, most authentic form. This emotional breakthrough is often accompanied by silence, a deep inner silence that comes when we stop fighting against ourselves. It is a moment of peace, a moment where all the noise of the external world and the internal battles we've waged with ourselves quiet down. In this silence, we are left with nothing but ourselves, and it is here that we find the truth. We find that mental strength is not something we need to build from the outside in, but something that already exists within us, waiting to be uncovered. It is here in this stillness that we can begin to see ourselves as we truly are, not as perfect, flawless beings, but as people who are perfectly human, with all our strengths and weaknesses, our light and our shadow. From this place of acceptance and understanding, we begin to make different choices. We stop running from discomfort, stop hiding from our fears, and instead learn to move through them with awareness, compassion, and strength. We stop trying to force life to bend to our will, and instead we learn to flow with it, to dance with it. We begin to understand that the key to mental strength lies not in conquering everything that comes our way, but in learning how to navigate through life's challenges with grace and resilience. True mental strength, then, is not about invulnerability. It's about the courage to face life's messiness, to embrace the parts of ourselves we fear, and to integrate all aspects of our being into a harmonious whole. It's about learning to be both strong and vulnerable, both powerful and tender, both grounded and open to change. And in this balance, we find the peace and resilience that come with embracing who we truly are, flaws and all. This realization is the turning point in our journey. It is the moment when we finally let go of the illusion of control and embrace the wisdom that lies in surrender. It is the moment when we stop fighting our humanity and begin to accept it. And in this acceptance, we unlock a mental strength that is truly unshakable.